Well, here we are at the end of the semester. Can you believe it? Just a few weeks together and it's already over. But let me take a minute to talk about the end of the semester. So remember, this is not this week, and that today is what, the 20th or 19th? And then, but it's the middle of next week. We end on Friday, not on Sunday. So you want to get all your materials finished and done and into me by Friday. Don't wait till Sunday, Friday the 29th, not, is that right? Friday anyway, Friday the 21st, not Sunday, 31st. Anyway, you get the idea. So everything's in. If you have any questions, please send them ASAP. If you have a problem, let's talk about it now, because if you want to talk to me about it on Wednesday or Thursday, it might be too late to fix the problem. But if you've got a problem now, let me know so that we are ready to go at the end of the month. And then one other thing I want to mention, I've mentioned it a few times before this, but for your persuasive speech that you're going to be finishing up this week, for the persuasive speech self-evaluation, you're going to do an evaluation just like you did for the informative speech, but the instruction format is different. It's not the same. Don't do the same evaluation. You will lose points just because you didn't read the instructions. Look in there, find the one that says persuasive speech self-evaluation. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit quicker. It's a little bit easier. I do it this way at the end of the semester so you can get it done quicker and get things in on time. So, okay. So we're now going to have our last video of the semester. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Next semester will be teaching here from my living room. So I don't know what that means. But anyway, last video today. I hope you enjoy it. This one's on special occasion speeches. By special occasion, I think what we mean are a few things. Number one, they're shorter. Number two, they're probably not as involved as an informative or persuasive speech necessarily. Number three, they're probably maybe considered a little bit more personal. 3 out of the 4 maybe. But anyway, they're just a little bit of a different breed. And the typical example I would give for a special occasion speech that you might be giving, even if you're not going into a field of public speaking, maybe a toast at a family member or a friend's wedding. There's that little toast beforehand, and that's something you don't just want to do it at the spur of the moment. You want to put some time into it and think it through and come up with something that's good and memorable and meaningful. So that, if you want to think of special occasion speeches, think of that as an example. And then another comment I want to make about this is these are not the same thing as impromptu speeches. Impromptu, as we talked about before, are spur of the moment, are minimal, if any, preparation. You're asked at a certain moment and you're giving the presentation a few minutes later. That's not this. These special occasion speeches do call for, even though they're shorter, and maybe there's less preparation, maybe there's no research, maybe there's some depending on which one you're doing, but they do call for preparation and they do call for practice, so you don't get out of either of those kind of items, but there just maybe less preparation and less practice, but you still want to put the time in so you can do a great job. So let's talk about the 4. I have them posted right up here. Special occasion speeches are speeches of introduction, speeches of presentation, not preparation, presentation, speeches of acceptance, and commemorative speeches. So let me talk first about speeches of introduction. I remember several years ago, my wife and I got tickets or whatever, passes to go see a taping of Seinfeld out in Burbank. And we went out there and we were sitting in, probably many of you have been to tapings of television shows, but you're sitting in bleachers. And before they started taping the actual episode, and this is the one, I think it's called The Showerhead, but it's where they were getting low pressure in the building. They were going to put in new shower heads that would cause the low pressure. And the famous line I remember from it, and you might have seen it, is where they're saying low water pressure. I don't like the sound of that. Anyway, that's the line that gets repeated over and over again. They have funny hair. Makes me laugh. Jerry Seinfeld's hair, because they don't get pressure, they don't get soapy suds and all that stuff. So anyway, maybe you've seen it. Maybe you don't watch Seinfeld. My generation still watches a lot of Seinfeld. I probably watch it several episodes every week still. But anyway, okay. But before they came out, there was a guy who came out to warm up the crowd, to make them laugh, to get them at ease, to give any instructions. And the key instruction was, if you feel like laughing, laugh. You know, don't fake it, but laugh. We want to hear you laugh. That's what you're here for, is to provide a live action laughing audience. So he warmed up the crowd. Well, in a speech of introduction, that is what your job is. You are there to warm up the crowd. It's probably not that glib, we wouldn't say it that way, but you are there to prepare for the audience for the main speaker. You are not the main speaker. Do not try to be the main speaker. Do not try to focus on you and how important can I be, how funny can I be, how significant can I be. That's not your job. Your job is there to do what you can do to make it easier for the main speaker to do their presentation to that audience. And make the audience, if you can, appreciate, enjoy, be ready to hear and respond to the main speaker. That is your job. So you want to keep that clear, that difference in the two. And some guidelines for this. I have 5 of them for you, 6 of them. Number 1 is you're going to be brief. I already mentioned that. Being brief is what this is all about. It's not about you. You're not the person. You are just the warm-up act, if you want to say it that way. So brief is better. In fact, on all these, briefer is better. Probably any public presentation, brief is always better. Okay, number 2, be accurate. Now, whatever you say to warm up the audience or to get the audience ready for the speaker, you want to be accurate. I've got a few, kind of odd funeral experiences that I share with students sometimes. But one of them, I don't think it's ever really happened to me, but I was very well aware of it because of my name. So sometimes when you are a clergy or a pastor, you will get a call from a funeral home to say, a family needs a pastor to do a funeral. Can you do the funeral? And sure, I can do that. And you would then meet with the family, sometimes just once. Sometimes just over the phone, not even in person. And you would try to gather some information so that you could take a situation where you don't know anybody. It could be very sterile and generic, but you try to bring some feeling and emotion into it to match the feeling going on with the family. So you'll get some questions, try to gather some information. Every once in a while, a pastor will overstep. They will make assumptions about the person, and I'll give you an example. So my first name is Robert, but I've never gone by Robert. I go by Neil. I remember in, I think, 2nd grade elementary school, I'm going in the classroom and the instructor, the teacher's calling roll, going down the list, and calling Robert, and nobody's answering. And I'm looking around, who's Robert, and why isn't he answering? She was talking to me because I didn't never go by Robert. I didn't know she was talking to me. But anyway, at the funeral, this could happen where the pastor, in order, attempting to make it warmer and more intimate with the family, let's say the deceased name was Robert or Bob. And so he says, well, Robert, okay, we call him Bob. So he's saying Bob this and Bob that and all that. And the audience is thinking, family, we never called him Bob. We always referred to him as Robert. And so every time the pastor's trying to make a connection, he's frustrating the family just a little bit more. So the point here is when you're developing a speech of presentation, make sure you have the correct information about the speaker you are introducing. Their proper name, if you're going to mention an age or where they work or maybe where they teach or where they're from, what they did for a living. Make sure your information is accurate, because you may be the one who doesn't know the things you're saying are incorrect, and the whole audience is aware that you're making mistakes. So make sure you have correct information when you are presenting somebody else. Number 3, adapt your remarks to the occasion. And particularly I'm thinking of formal versus informal. As I said, at a funeral, it's probably more on the formal side, so you want to match your comments to be of a more formal nature. If it is a family reunion, that's probably pretty informal. Or a wedding, probably more on the formal side, but it could be informal depending on the setting. But make sure that you are aware of the environment that you're going to be speaking in when you're doing your preparation. Ask the family if you're not sure, or whoever the host is. Make sure that you get the right tone, the right mood in your preparation. And then finally on this, adjust your comments to the audience. What did I write here? Say, what do you need to do to connect the speaker, the audience, and the subject? Those are the 3 things you are bringing together: the speaker, the audience, and the occasion or the reason for the presentation. You've got to figure out a way to tie those 3 together. And another one is, don't make things more difficult for the speaker. You don't need to tell funny stories from the past. You don't need to embarrass the speaker, thinking that's kind of a warm way to welcome them is by embarrassing them. You don't want to do that. And then, see, what else did I want to say here? Sorry about this. Oh, don't create unrealistic expectations for the presenter. This is going to be the best speech you have ever heard, ever, anywhere. Well, it probably won't be that, so don't say that. And then one last thing, let me throw this in there, is you are also wanting to create anticipation. That's the big thing about at the Seinfeld taping. That introducer was trying to build excitement, energy, anticipation that the audience is going to receive something great. And so without overselling it, you do want to make sure you're saying, get ready for something. You're going to be very pleased and enjoy what is coming up. So, okay, so that is a speech of introduction. Now the next 2, as it says, a speech of presentation and a speech of acceptance, are kind of 2 sides of the same coin. The speech of presentation is where you are going to be presenting an award, acknowledgement, a trophy, a scholarship, where you're going to be presenting something to someone else. A speech of acceptance is where you would be receiving, accepting for you that reward or recognition or scholarship. So let's talk about the first one, a speech of presentation. And just a few things here. First of all, you want to tell the audience any appropriate background to the award or recognition. For example, if it's the John P. Smith Scholarship, many, or if not most, if any, all of the audience may not know what the John P. Scholarship is about. They may not know who John P. is, or John P. Smith, yeah. They may not know who he is. Why is a scholarship named in his name? So you want to make sure you give a little bit of background so they say, okay, this person is receiving the John P. Smith Award as a scholarship for excellence in high school grade point average. Okay, so now they know what the award is that the person is receiving. Another thing that we often don't think about is recognize the competitors, if there were any. If there were several people who were going to be up for the award and they were competing for it in some way, then go ahead and give a word of recognition and acknowledgement and affirmation of, the textbook says, of the losers. I'm not going to say that, but of those who didn't win. So you at least say, hey, these folks were trying hard, so let's acknowledge them for a moment. Very gracious and an appropriate thing to do. And then third is, let's see, tell the audience what the recipient did to receive the award. If it was for a scholarship, tell them what the speaker, what their scholarship was. If it was for an athletic recognition, tell them how fast they run the 100-meter low hurdles. Is that a thing? I think it is, but anyway, you get the idea. So tell them what they did. And so you're just setting them up to then come up, hand them the award, you're done off the stage, and then the recipient takes over with, which is our next type of speech, which is a speech of acceptance. This is where you are receiving the award and you are now going to do at least a few words. And, you know, we always talk about, like with the Oscars or Emmys, do they prepare something ahead of time? Because if you didn't win, then it's a waste of your time. But if you do win, you want to get up there and at least have something sketched out so you don't stand there with not being able to think of anything to say. So if you are going to be receiving an Academy Award or an Emmy nomination, you can take these words to heart. So three things. Number one is recognize the group or organization who is giving you the award. Let the audience know that you know what the award is and why you are receiving it, and give them a word of acknowledgement. Number two, recognize the people in your life who helped you achieve the award or the scholarship or whatever it is that you have achieved. You know, we don't get anywhere by ourselves. There's always people behind us who are helping us. Even though we're not always as aware or appreciative as we should be, it's probably a general rule. Take a moment to acknowledge your friends, your instructors, like your public speaking instructor, your mentors, and your parents. If they had a role in helping you achieve it, then give them a word of acknowledgement and appreciation. And you may not have even thought about it till this point, but yes, do take a moment to say, thanks, Mom and Dad, for your support and your encouragement and your direction, and for the money you gave me over the years. And then third thing on a speech of acceptance is more character traits, humility and appreciation. Genuinely think through what these folks have done for you and acknowledge, number one, we probably didn't do it alone. I guess there may be some cases, but for the most part, we didn't do it alone, and we are appreciative and thankful for those people in our life who helped us achieve what we have achieved. So, for example, without my wife's support, I wouldn't have been able to go back to school and earn a master's degree in communication studies, and then be able to start teaching and ending up here teaching at ch.18 College. So there are those people who helped us achieve what we have achieved. Okay, then finally is the commemorative speech. This one is a little bit different than the others. First of all, it's a little bit longer. Second, it has a little bit more preparation to it. And third, it is mainly emotion-based. So it's not all information or data, but it is more inspiration. And the way I say it is, in a commemorative speech, you are trying to persuade your audience, and I think these are all types of persuasive speeches. Speech of introduction, you are trying to persuade your audience to welcome and accept and greet warmly the speaker. A speech of presentation, you are trying to persuade your audience to show appreciation to somebody who has achieved something. A speech of acceptance is you're persuading your audience to appreciate the one who accepted it, and then to receive their words as well. A little bit weaker. And then finally, a commemorative speech is certainly a speech where I would say it like this. You're trying to persuade your audience to love what the speaker loves. because we are trying to get the audience, in this commemorative speech, we are picking a person, an event, a concept or idea, maybe a building, but a thing that we love, we appreciate. Maybe it was my college. I went to Westmont College. I'm trying to persuade the audience. I'm going to do my words to love and appreciate Westmont College. Maybe through the form of giving, maybe through the form of sending their kids there. But here's Westmont College that I love. I'm going to share with you why I love it and why I hope that you would come to love it as well. Something like that. Okay. So just a couple of things here. Number one, as I said, aim for the emotions. We're not gathering in, this is not an informative speech about Westmont College or the Lincoln Memorial or the World War II USS Arizona Memorial, which I've never been to. Would love to do that. Or the Grand Canyon or whatever it is. We want to use emotion. And the way we do that is the second thing is the power of language. And here is one, I'll give you an example from my grandmother. We called her Grammy. And she lived back in Leavenworth, Kansas, where I'm from. We lived kind of on properties that were right next door to each other. She would babysit my brother and I when we were young. And my mom was at work and all that, my dad. So anyway, but I remember one of the things I loved about Grammy was her cooking. And we would often go up to her house, probably 5 days a week. And when we would go up there, often we'd walk in the door and I could smell, I guess it would be yeast, in a rising batch of dough. And if it wasn't the dough, then it would be in its finished form of cinnamon rolls. Now, I'm sure, sorry, Grammy, that her cinnamon rolls were probably as good as any other grandmother's cinnamon rolls, but to me, they were the best tasting cinnamon rolls in the world. I love Cinnabon, but better than Cinnabon. And again, this is back when I was about 5 years old. I'm 60 now, so this is 55 years ago. I'm sure it's tasted better, fonder memories. By the way, they say that smell is one of your greatest memories. Okay. But anyway, I love cinnamon to this day. Maybe that was Grammy's cinnamon rolls. I don't know. But I would try to create a word picture of, I remember walking up to Grammy's house on my way to school to learn at Woodrow Wilson Elementary School in Leavenworth, Kansas. And as we would enter the door, quite often there would be the smell of rising dough from the bowl of dough Grammy had put out into the dining room to catch the sunshine coming right on it. And then later in the day it would be the smell of freshly baked cinnamon rolls and the taste of those cinnamon rolls and my love for cinnamon. I would try to use word pictures and word images and proper, powerful language to cast that imagery to the audience, not about how much cinnamon she used or how much sugar or how long she kneaded the dough or how long did it rise. That's irrelevant. It's the power of emotion of the words that we are striving for. Now, that's not my cup of tea. I'm more fact-based, information-based to make the case for the day, but this is something that would be to consider using the power of words and the power of emotion and the power of language. And that is the biggest item. Talk about 3 aspects of the person's life. Say you appreciate the power of their presence, the power of their words, and the power of their legacy. That'd make a pretty good commemorative speech about somebody for 3 points. And then you share a story or an experience or a memory for each of those items where those things came to life. You pepper it with information about born and died and where they lived and what they did, but that is simply the added elements to a speech about, I want you to love my grandmother, Grace Pansy Parsons. That was her name. So anyway, great. So that's probably all I'm going to say about that. So in those situations where you are called to do a speech of introduction, a speech of presentation, a speech of acceptance, or a commemorative speech, you don't have to prepare as much as an informative or persuasive, but you do need to prepare. Okay, so that's enough about that. And I'll be seeing you or reading from you all of your items that you are submitting. Please contact me if I can be of further help. All right, thank you.